Today's sermonette, God's ruler of the night. We're going to talk about a few surprising things about the moon, how unusual it really is, to discuss even more how intricate God's creation is, things that we never thought about. And then on top of it, I'm going to talk about how important it is for life itself on Earth. Yes, the moon. We don't think of the moon that way, but it's extremely important for life on Earth. Now, some background. The moon is Earth's only natural satellite, the diameter about 2,100 miles. It orbits at roughly 240,000 miles. It circles the Earth every 27,322 days, the same period as its rotation. It weighs about 81 quintillion tons, has no magnetic field, no atmosphere, and it's composed of rocky material with all kinds of craters. The dark areas are made of basalt, like iron, manganese, and titanium. Lighter regions on the moon are much more cratered, made up of light-colored rock called anorthosite. It contains lighter elements such as calcium and aluminum. Now, a quick background from Scripture. You don't have to turn there, but the next time you're in Genesis, look in chapter 1. There's verse 16, where God says he created a greater light to rule the day and a lesser light to rule the night. And it's still a mystery, our moon. Now we're going to get into that. The first thing about the moon that makes it so unusual, it's the unusual mixture of elements. And we're only finding this out in the last 40, 50 years. We landed on the moon. We performed experiments. We had 6 trips to the moon, and we did hundreds of experiments. Heavier elements on the moon are a mystery. The normal planets in our solar system are going to have the heavier minerals, the heavier materials, minerals, and metals inside, like the iron core on a planet, the lighter materials on the outside. For the moon to have heavier materials on the outside is a total mystery. They don't even understand how it happened. There was one scientist that says the abundance of the refractory elements like titanium is so pronounced, we don't know how they were brought to the moon's surface, but it's there. Now, why is it there? To reflect. You have to have certain minerals on the moon's surface for it to reflect the light of the sun. So already how it got there, the scientists don't fully understand. Now, the NASA Lunar Exploration Committee actually listed several things. First thing talked about how to reflect the sun's light, the surface. Also, very tough minerals make up the moon's surface. It could take a lot of meteor hits. I think that's a good thing in our solar system. You see a lot of craters. And the minerals were so tough that our astronauts had a very difficult time actually drilling into the moon's surface when they first were on the moon. And there's something else that came out. Again, there's many facts about the moon that are fascinating that we still can't fully explain. They found in their analysis of the rocks, when they brought back the rocks and the soil samples, they said that the rocks were estimated to be like 5.3 billion years old. But the dust on top of the rocks came from another place, and it's older than the rocks. They can't figure that one out either. So the moon was an unusual creation, and it gets even more interesting. The orbit of the moon. You can write down Psalm 104:19. He has appointed the moon for seasons, for the calendar and for the telling the seasons. Our moon is the only moon in the solar system that has a near perfect circular orbit. No other moon has that. And stranger still, the moon still shows one face to Earth at one time because it rotates itself as it goes around the Earth. So it keeps the same face. That also can't be explained. Now, if any of you are big sports folks and you've seen the basketball heroes, take the basketball and spin it on their finger, if you take a basketball and you stick some extra weight on it, I don't know, bandage or something, it's not going to spin. It's going to fall. It's going to wobble. Well, the moon is off balance. They found out in analysis that the center of the moon is off center with the weight. They're saying it's about a mile off. Now, they don't understand, wait a minute, how does the moon have a circular orbit, perfect circular orbit, and yet still keep one face to Earth all the time, but yet the moon itself is off center in its mass? And one scientist said the rotation and the orbit being the same period is why the moon always faces the Earth. But they also, one scientist said, and he had to use the word something, he wouldn't use the obvious. He said something had to put the moon in orbit with its precise altitude, course, and speed. So they had theories in the past, but the way the moon is positioned, nope. But now, so you already have an unusual composition of the moon. You have an unusual orbit. Now let's turn to Scripture, and there's a surprising statement where Moses made to Israel, and obviously to all of us, about how important the moon really is. Turn to Deuteronomy 33, where Moses was actually blessing the tribes. I mean, what does that have to do with the moon? But here it is. Deuteronomy 33, verse 14. Well, in verse 13 of Deuteronomy 33, he said, "Blessed of the Lord be of his land, for the precious things of heaven, for the dew and the deep that couches beneath." Verse 14, "And for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon." Wait a minute. It's also translated months and moon. Now, what on earth could that be? Because we can deduce logically that the sun is important for light and heat, growing of crops, but that moon up there, what does that mean to us? And how did Moses know this, 3,500 years ago? Well, there's some other interesting facts about the moon. The Earth is anchored by the moon's pole. What happens is it anchors the Earth's tilt, without which life would be impossible. The presence of a large moon will stabilize the Earth. It has to have a tilt to have seasons. It was first discovered by the SWRI Institute scientist William Ward, who was then at the Harvard Center for Astrophysics. Were it not for the moon, the influence of the giant planets in our solar system, Jupiter, for example, would force the Earth eventually to tilt, and the variation of that tilt would be very large. Right now, that tilt is 23.5 degrees. If it was a lot more, the seasons would be extreme cold for months, extreme heat for months. Life would be very difficult. And literally, they were saying that and again, just finding this out decades ago, but not 300 or 500 or 1,000 years ago, that the moon is absolutely critical for holding the Earth like a flywheel and holding the tilt of it. Now, there's more. This one surprised the heck out of me. The tides. We live in Florida here. Go to the ocean. There's the tides. Well, 2 high tides a day. Scientists are coming to realize that marine life would be impossible without them. The moon's gravity pulls on the water and actually pulls it up, and it shrinks here, and a high tide and a low tide. And well, what is that? By the high and low tide, the water circulates, it makes the current, brings nutrients to the shore, and it's obviously tied to the ocean currents. Some scientists have said if we didn't have tides, we wouldn't have circulation in the ocean, and maybe our ocean would be dead. Now, 3/4 of the planet's surface, or 2/3 of the planet's surface, is water. If that became dead and stagnant, what on would there even be life on this planet? Without tides. They also know that tides control the behavior and the life cycles of the creatures. There are fish and turtles and penguins that know the tides. They know they're coming, and the ocean tides tell them when it's time to come into land or lay eggs and all that sort of thing. Without tides, there's no currents, no distribution of heat, not just the current, but the distribution of heat. Arctic to tropical and back. When you start studying the planet and the ocean currents, you realize there was extremely well thought out what God has done to put the moon in orbit with its unusual creation. I've got something else that I ran across. I wanted to give you as a flavor. There's a lot of things about the moon I don't have time to cover, but I wanted to give you a flavor, but for how intricate the moon is, how special it is, built, orbiting, and how important it is for life on Earth. God sweats the details. He does it all. And we haven't even figured a lot of it out until more recently, and we still don't know all of it. Now, this was something I ran across, which I'll be finishing the sermonette with. They took a lunar module in 1969, Apollo 12 crew. They jettisoned the lunar module, and they caused it to crash into the moon. The moon reverberated like a bell for almost an hour. Now, they repeated the phenomenon with Apollo 13, and they took the third stage to impact the moon, and the seismic instruments recorded that the moon reverberated for 3 hours and 20 minutes, and the vibrations went down to 25 miles, leading to the conclusion that the moon has an unusually light core, or maybe even a giant space. They didn't want to touch that one, but I'm thinking, wait a minute. The same God that builds the human body and all of the animals and the DNA, he may have a lot more things that he's put into the moon that we still don't know yet. But I wanted to give you a flavor for just how important it is, what God's creation really is, and God really sweats the details. Have a good Sabbath.